what I was about to say before you hopped on, I was talking to the people about, first of all, what Rap and Do is about. We like to highlight Black excellence and put forth our own narrative instead of how it used to be. We used to have to wait to get on TV. We used to have to wait to uh, get our story out after they tell it, right? So that's what Rap and Do is about. So basically, I said, you know what? Let me bring this brother Rahkim Sabree on here because, brother, for people that don't know you, let me just let the people know
Other people
who
know.
you are. Because let me do it, brother, because you deserve this. Two-time author, real estate investor, certified financial coach, right? 10 plus years in banking. Two-time Amazon bestseller, TED Talk speaker. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can go on and on, but just to give you a brief background on my man, he's out here shaking shit. So without further ado, Rahkim Sabree. What's up, bro?
What's going on? I appreciate the warm welcome. Sometimes I forget.
Nah, man, you got to get your roses today. You hear me?
Sometimes I forget all the things that I've done.
You got to get them roses today. But what's up, fam? I had to chop it up with you, man. Because you a heavy brother, man. I like to rub shoulders with brothers like you, man. So for the people that don't know you, where are you from?
From Mount Vernon, New York.
Okay. That's upstate.
It's not upstate.
That ain't upstate?
No.
What?
It's in Westchester County. Mount Vernon actually touches the Bronx. I could walk
Oh, okay.
from Mount Vernon into the Bronx. But a lot of people from the city do.
Hey, listen, man. I ain't been in New York in a minute, so pardon me. Right by the Bronx. Okay.
We right Yonkers and all in that little hub, touching the Bronx.
Okay, I ain't even know that, bro. All this time I was today years old when I learned that. I thought Mount Vernon was upstate or near upstate. I don't even know why I thought that, but whatever. Okay. So Mount Vernon, New York. Okay. I ain't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
Nah, you're good. So I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. I spent a little bit of time down in San Antonio, Texas, and I've been here in Connecticut since 2011. So
Okay.
for 10 years now. Oof.
So are you still in banking?
I'm not. I left banking in May of last year. I'm a free agent.
Sweet. That's what we talking about. That's what we're trying to do out here. So we gonna go down a rabbit hole, bro.
Let's do it.
You was talking about empowerment. I was watching a few of your speeches, and you know, because that goes hand in hand with you being a free agent. You know what I'm saying? So that empowerment, what I grabbed from that, you were saying that I'm gonna start deep. You were saying that, you know, us as Black people, we built this country up, right? One of the richest countries in the world. But at the same time that we did that for this country, built up all this wealth and whatnot, at the same time, we have this attitude towards wanting to build wealth. I think you called it cognitive dissonance.
I don't know which of my talks which you referenced.
Do you remember that?
Definitely sounds like something that I would have said.
You said there's some type of cognitive dissonance there with us being the people that built the wealth of this country, but when it comes to building it for ourselves, it seems like I guess we don't feel empowered. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I mean, so my message right now is centered around the pathway between financial literacy and financial empowerment. And where I find there to be a major roadblock is in the trauma that we've experienced, right? Financial trauma. And financial trauma is not unique to just Black people, right? But I like to focus on that experience because it's an experience that I can relate to. And it's a unique experience in this country when you talk about introducing history, introducing culture, and really kind of what is that generational trauma apart from the financial trauma that influence how we exist, how we show up today. So I focus on financial trauma through, or rather, as the kind of like roadblock to achieving financial empowerment that says it's more than we have to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. It's more than we need to go out and get a high paying job. It's more than, water under the bridge, right? When it comes to not acknowledging slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and Tulsa and all of the other things that we've been experiencing, like existence trauma around. It's the combination of all of those things that says, why do I choose to spend my money on a collection of Jordan sneakers instead of Nike stock, right? Or why do I feel apprehension around trusting these institutions when generationally we can see that, or rather historically, we can see that those institutions have created a reason for us to mistrust them.
That's a fact, though.
And so, so there's so much to unpack there, and I think one of them, I don't want to call it a mistake, one of the shortcomings in the financial education community is that, particularly for Black financial educators, we kind of share this rhetoric that says everybody is starting at the same place, right? Everybody has equal footing. And we don't talk about all of the things that I just mentioned as being a deterring factor from what is financial success, financial freedom, financial empowerment. And so when you're having these conversations, and I participate in a lot of like Twitter debates and these discussions that happen, we're talking about this idea of business ownership and entrepreneurship. We're talking about the abuses that Black people experience in the corporate environment. When you talk about the scamming, right, that takes place when it comes to selling financial products or selling courses or selling coaching or mentoring or anything like that. Like there's every week there's a new scandal that creates more and more and more mistrust among us for each other, that make the job of people like me more difficult, right? How do I reach an audience who, how do you reach an audience who you are delivering a quality product, but they've already been through so many bad experiences? They're like, not another Black man selling a course, not another Black man mentoring. And so I focus on a very unique niche when it comes to financial education, that is financial trauma, because I can speak from a position of navigating it, right, through experience. I can speak from a position of credibility that comes with having been in the industry, having worked with financial products. I can speak from a place of certification, and I can speak from a place of understanding like the struggles of our people from a psychological perspective. I study psychology. And so that makes me uniquely qualified to talk about these things. And really the angle that I go, and I don't come in like I'm this expert guru that you need to listen to. Really the angle that I come in from is like, this is my experience. I'm sharing my experiences. So nobody could ever check me on what it is that I'm saying because I'm sharing my experience. You can't tell me my experience is wrong.
Right.
Right? You can tell me that if you did what I did, that you wouldn't have been successful at it. But that's not a me problem. That's a you problem, right? So my intent is to show people what's possible and then to show them different pieces of how I did it. Not so much to create a version of them that looks like me, but to inspire them to create a version of them that maybe have accomplished the things that I've accomplished or more. So that, I think that's empowerment. It's not creating this cult following, but it's inspiring and creating other leaders to go out and do their own thing.
Man, you made a super fire point about, well, several points about the layers of dysfunction or trauma um, that delineates people to be in different starting points. Everybody doesn't start from the same point because of these different layers of dysfunction that we may have experienced. And you said that those things tend to be the roadblocks that stop us from, like, oh man, I ain't listening. I don't know if I trust bull. Or, yeah, that's a challenge that we have to. So what do you think? What more do we need to be doing? I know we need to keep going. I know we need to keep screaming from the rooftops where we're screaming. But what more could we do to, I guess, water down that doubt besides keep going and keep showing improving?
I like this question. My dad and I talk a lot about the work that I do. And one of the things that he often reminds me is that I don't really need to explain anything to anybody.
Ooh.
Like,
Really,
you don't gotta justify. You don't gotta explain nothing to nobody. Like, you're it. Like, you're doing it, right? And so I think when you have a passion for your people, and I fall into this category where sometimes I get offended by people resisting the education that I'm trying to provide or criticizing the way that I'm trying to educate, because I have a very provocative teaching style. But you have to have a provocative teaching style in a world of, scrolling across social media, right? How do you catch your audience's attention? But more importantly, how do you keep it? And so I might say something that will make somebody look at me sideways like, what? What did he say? That's crazy. That's crazy talk. But it then gives me the opportunity to explain and elaborate so that their thought form can kind of come around. My problem in this is that I get emotionally attached to the desired outcome. And some people are determined to introduce dysfunction or a lack of understanding in the equation, right? Especially when you look at like the Twitterverse or Instagram or whatever, like they just want to argue with you for the sake of arguing.
Facts, man.
And so it can be exhausting as somebody who is genuinely trying to make this change. That I've seen, I got into it on Twitter recently, where somebody said Black people are behind in financially, educationally, even spiritually. And I was just like, we need to stop telling this lie, right? And they're like, there's stats out there that says this. And I was like, there's no way that the stats can be accurate because Black people are not a monolith, right? There's so many different variables that you have to take into account when you're looking at these statistics that would make it hard to come up with a consensus. And so, of course, I'm being criticized, and because I have verification on Twitter, it makes me even more of a target, right? People really hate me now.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, my mission is to inspire you to think better of yourself, but not to think of you as being better than your neighbor, right? But the general sentiment in that tweet was that I'm Black and I'm tired of reaching back to other Black people who are convinced that, what status quo is.
That could be burnout. Some people might be
it is burnout.
From a place of burnout.
And what I'm saying is that the burnout can occur, likely does occur, because people are so passionate about sharing their experiences and they're running into the brick wall. So again, to your question and to your point, sometimes it's just necessary to say, I don't owe you an explanation, right? My work speaks for itself. right? And so I found myself in the Twitter back and forth where people was, saying whatever they were saying about me. I said, listen, type my name into Google. That's it. Type my name into Google and go through all of the stuff that comes up. And I try to be careful with using that because that is like a flex, right?
It is a flex.
That is a
It
flex.
is a flex.
Oh, he's flexing on me. But at the same time, that's where I said my work is public. The
Yeah,
work
but
that
see,
I got is public.
right, what I'm saying is there's a thin line between I ain't gotta explain shit to I want you to get it. You understand what I'm saying? It's like I don't want to be sitting here trying to explain myself, but at the same time I'm trying to help you.
Right.
So it's like that's the juggling act that we out here trying to do.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
100%. So yeah, going back to your question, the that would be my dad's answer to me. How do you get people to pay attention? Well, if they pay attention, they pay attention. If they don't, they don't. Like you can't control that outcome.
Mm.
But I think my answer would be just keep creating content.
Keep
right?
going.
I've been saying the same thing for I want to say maybe going on 5 years now. But people have been paying attention to what I've been saying lately over the last 2 years. But what's happened over the last 2 years, right? I've been featured in this publication, started writing for that publication. Like I'm getting public recognition from outside sources. And so now my message is amplified. And people are like, oh, he said this in Black Enterprise? Well, I said it before Black Enterprise. But he
Right.
wasn't paying attention. Right? So, or I can deliver the same message with 13,000 followers that I deliver with 5,000 followers. Now all of a sudden I have so many more likes, shares, comments because people are looking at the follower count and they're like, "Oh man, like I gotta share this." So it's leveraging, and I think this is interesting. Kind of like call back to the beginning of this conversation. It's leveraging the controlling of your own narrative and learning how to portray that in a way that you want to portray it instead of waiting for somebody else to put you on, right? At this point, I have enough names and brands behind my name to really feel comfortable turning down an offer to do something that I don't want to do. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
previously, if a big brand approached me and was like, "Hey, Rahkim, we want you to talk about XYZ thing," I'm jumping on the opportunity like, hell yeah, let's do it. But I've only gotten to this point because I started saying yes to the small opportunities, right? Somebody just started their podcast a week ago. "Hey, Rahkim, you want to be on my podcast?" Yes, let's do it. Somebody who's had an established podcast for 5 years. "Hey, Rahkim, you want to be on my podcast?" Yes, let's do it. And so I say yes. But beyond that, now I have the ability to choose. Like, do I want to contribute my energy to this project? And that's me controlling the narrative, right? Like, big brand can come to me and say, "Hey, Rahkim, we want you to stand on your head and talk about what it was like to be poor, and talk about not having a your dad in the household, and all that." I can say that's not the story I want to tell. I don't want to focus on that part of the story. Why are you sensationalizing my trauma and my pain? Let's talk about the things that I've accomplished. Let's talk about what success looks like, right? And I'm in the place of control where I can do that, right? I can focus on the things that I want to talk about when I want to talk about them. So I would say, you can only lead a horse to water, right? You can't make it drink, and it's not my desire to force people to build wealth, but for the people that want to learn how to build wealth and change their mindset and do the things that they need to be doing, then I'm here to give that freely, and I do frequently.
So basically, keep going, keep dropping content because your tribe will arrive. Basically,
100%.
And another thing that I definitely wanted to talk about was your book Mentorship, the playbook. That title is so fire because for a long time I didn't know I needed a mentor. And I think having a mentor is the hack. But a lot of times us folk, we don't like to be told what to do.
The fact.
We don't like being
The
told what to
fact.
do. It could be super beneficial. Like, yeah, I mean, go do XYZ, you're gonna run the bag up or whatever the case may be. We have a hard time listening, or being under submission, right? What made you come up with that book in 2018?
So funny. I don't talk about that book very often anymore, but that was really my entry point into like the speaking world.
Okay.
I wrote that book not for public consumption. I wrote it for me. Um, and as I was writing it, I realized that a lot of the things that I talked about were teachable moments.
Mm.
So I don't even know. I don't remember what I was going to title it initially, but it was really just kind of supposed to be like a memoir, and that's the shape that it takes. It's going through experiences that I've had, pulling from literal journal entries that I wrote back when I was whatever age, and talking through those experiences. But I found a way to connect those experiences to lessons that then teach somebody who wants to be a mentor or who is a mentor how to be more effective in their role, but also somebody who is a mentee or who wants to be a mentee how to be more effective in their role. When we think about that dynamic between mentor and mentee, oftentimes the mentee thinks, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to get a mentor. Now I have somebody to ask questions or look for feedback around, but they also just kind of wait, right? They're waiting for the mentor to tell them what to do. And so this book encourages the mentee to take ownership of the relationship as well and
Mm.
saying, if this is something that you need, ask for it. But how do you establish the boundaries and the cadences around what those interactions look like? Because a lot of times mentorship work is unpaid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm spending how much time to try and convince you as a mentee to do whatever, and you're not taking my advice. Well, at this stage in my life, right, I don't have the time to waste trying to convince you to do something that you should be doing. Maybe at an earlier stage in my life I did, right? I could fight with people and, hey, nah, like, I told you to do this thing, I'm going to tell you to do this thing again. And a lot of time, and I get requests frequently from people, oh, I want you to mentor me, I want you to mentor me. And my response to them is always, well, what does that mean? What does that look like for
Mm.
you? Right? Are you trying to navigate around a paywall that would be considered coaching so that you could get free information from me? Right? That happens all
Right.
the time. Or are you truly invested in what mentorship looks like? And a lot of times people don't know how to answer that question because the old view of mentorship is just like, well, I just have access to you. Well, a lot of people have access to me, right? Everybody that follows me has access to me. But it's like you want specialized access to me. You want one-on-one access to me. You want me to be invested in the things that are going on in your life, the obstacles, the roadblocks, your aspirations. What is the return on investment in my time for that? So mentorship, the playbook outlines how do you establish those boundaries as a mentor? How do you respect those boundaries as a mentee? How do you come together and come up with something that's agreeable in terms of cadence, in terms of involvement, in terms of, what's necessary when? And I really think that it's a game changer. I should do more promoting of that book.
For real, bro.
But
Because my thing is, yo, how did you even get the framework for that? Did you have a mentor?
I've had many. I've had many. And in the
Okay.
book, I redefine mentorship, right? So most people look at mentors as somebody who is older than you and significantly more experienced in a particular area than you are. I define mentorship in that book as anybody that you choose to allow to have influence over the way that you feel, think, react, what have you. So when you look at mentorship through that lens, your friends are your mentors, right? Your siblings could be your, anybody that is influencing the way that you are feeling or experiencing or acting in the world could be a mentor, teacher. You know, me, somebody on social media, right? You're paying attention to what they're saying. You're like, damn, like this person said it, so I'm gonna feel this way about it. And I think as quote unquote influencers in this world of social media, you know, we have a responsibility too to be mindful of what it is that we share and who is listening to what it is that we're saying as we assign titles to ourselves, because somebody may see me talk about, I don't know, doing a $10,000 balance transfer off of a credit card to buy stocks, right? And they're like, oh, I'm going to get a $10,000 credit card and do the same thing, not realizing that I understand the risk associated with that balance transfer, that maybe the interest rate that I'm navigating in that balance transfer is a lot lower than the interest rate that you might be navigating. And ultimately, I know that I can pay that money back in a reasonable time frame where maybe you can't. And so somebody is just kind of listening and then trying to do what it is that they saw me do without having that personalized interaction. They could be setting themselves up for financial ruin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of influencers really just kind of don't care what the outcome is. It's like, buy my product, buy my book, buy my course, buy my coaching. And, you know, there's no personalization there, especially when you're operating at scale. So, yeah, I think those two books definitely go hand in hand, mentorship and financially irresponsible.
So let me ask you this then. You were saying wrapping our brains around finance. Because I was taking notes. I was watching one of your speeches. I was taking notes. I was like, oh, ooh, wait a minute. So I think this stems from the trauma. I'm not sure. That's what I'm asking you. Because I think it was around that same topic, us wrapping our head around finance because of it seems so confusing. So they just what is your vision like? What, because you have a lot of stuff going on. You're an author, but it's around finance. You're a real estate investor. You're dope with credit. What is your vision for your platform? Like, what's your goal with your platform? What are you trying to do?
That's a good question. The honest answer is I don't know.
To create content. What did elevate me, Irene, say here, or is that just on my screen? I forgot what we was talking about.
Just want to create content. That's where I was talking about people who the influencers and the influencer responsibility.
Oh, okay.
As far as my platform goes, I think I've evolved to a place where I like to see me become a household name, like the Dave Ramseys and the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Grant Cardones of the world. Really,
When they think of what?
Say it again.
When they think of what?
That I'm not sure. At first, it was definitely finance, but I don't want to be pigeonholed into just finance, right? Finance is definitely an excellent vehicle for me to kind of convey this mission of empowerment. But I think as I evolve and this message crystallizes, people are starting to realize that I'm very passionate about Black people. I'm very passionate about what empowerment looks like for Black people. And so when I use the vehicle of finance to communicate that message, it's not excluding anybody else, but it's not targeting anybody else either. So I think when they think of finance and empowerment tied into the Black experience, I want people to think of Rahkim. And when you look at it from that kind of high level, broad perspective, well, then that can get into really anything else, right? You talk about home ownership, you talk about politics. I recently had a conversation on Twitter and TikTok around the perception of Black conservatives, right? So now we're getting into like the political arena.
Mm.
Talk about entrepreneurship, creating things for yourself. Talk about becoming an author, right? Talk about branding and media, right? How do you control the narrative? There's so many different avenues. Ultimately, the message, the theme that connects all of them is empowerment, right? How do you quit your job? Why do you quit your job? You know, who wants to quit their job? What does retirement look like? When does retirement look like? So many different things, and I just want people to embrace this limitless mindset that kind of breaks all of the illusions and stereotypes around what we are capable of or where our talent lies, without kind of co-opting um, what's well, right now what I'm thinking about is like the tech industry. Beautiful movement around Black people in technology,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's becoming like how a lot of Black people are identifying, right? I'm a Black person in tech. That's my whole identity. And there was that tweet that was shared over the weekend where the lady sold the car. Did you see that one? She sold an
Oh
old,
yeah,
yeah,
$800 a month
yeah, with the
payment.
28% APR. And I was just like, well, that person is probably a Black person in tech who, is now getting more money than they ever made before. And instead of knowing what to do with that money, they said, well, I can afford to pay $800 a month because I get paid significantly more than I've ever made. So the fundamentals don't mean anything, right? Understanding what you're paying in interest, understanding, you know, really the maintenance that comes with a vehicle like that, understanding just the basic financial literacy. And that's a space that I have a little bit of a focus on right now that I'm like trying to enter from a corporate consulting level and saying like, okay, we have these tech corporations that are hiring a lot of Black people who are experiencing life-changing increases in their salary, right? Maybe they were making 40, 50, $60,000 a year, and now they're making 140, 50, $60,000 a year, and they don't know what to do with that money because they don't have the financial education. What
Mm.
happens when all of these corporations cut all of those jobs, right? And all you have left is the $800 car payment, right? Or the high rise condo that you're paying whatever for.
Or you got the other side of the spectrum where people don't even make nowhere near that, or they'll make the $40,000 and still want to look like they making 160.
Right, right.
You got that too. You got the people that just don't know no better, that have the money to spend it on an $800 a month car. Then you got the people that can't really afford it, but they want to look like they can afford it.
Right.
So it's a whole gamut of dysfunction.
Yeah. And I want to be kind too to our people, right? Black people are not the only people that have this problem.
No.
But as I said, my focus
Yeah, we're
is
not talking to
very
them.
specific to Black people, right? And so this is a newer kind of occurrence where we're seeing income at such a high level because of this breaking into the tech space, where there's so much opportunity for us to build wealth and we're squandering it because we don't know any better.
Are we breaking into the tech industry? Are you seeing
I
an
mean,
uptick in that?
that's definitely the impression. There's a lot of work being done to bring awareness to that, to the pathways into tech, for Black people specifically. Um, I don't know anybody. Well, I shouldn't say that. I do know people through social media, but I don't know anybody personally who've gotten into tech from making $40,000 and now all of a sudden their
Yeah, I
lifestyle.
don't either.
But you hear about especially the people that are looking at the FANG companies, right? Facebook, Amazon, Apple, um, what are the other ones?
Google.
Microsoft, Google, all of them. So There's a lot of people spending a lot of money on certifications. There's a lot of people spending a lot of money on getting their resumes revamped, doing tech adjacent roles, whether that be sales tech or product management or program management, anything like that. And they're talking about their journey, their experience, and they're talking about their income too, telling the story, showing off the things. So I think the migration or the desire to migrate into that industry too comes from, oh, this person got money. I want money too. And so there's even like a lack of passion there. But we're so used to making decisions out of survival that
Mm-hmm.
the passion doesn't really bother us. I could easily right now spend some time, energy, and effort getting certified in tech to go into a tech role. I have a background in program management. It's very easy for me to pivot that skill set into tech, product management. But I'm not passionate about tech. That's not what I
Right.
want to do.
So let me
Um,
ask you this. If you were done, let me ask you this. I asked my guy, Tim Jackson. Shout out to Tim Jackson, Mr. Retired at 37. I asked him the same question. I'm going to ask you too, because you have a background in corporate too. So, how do you feel about the aspect of code switching? Like coming out of that into your own thing? Like, do you find it like a challenge coming back, or I guess being you unapologetically, coming from where you couldn't 100% be you to now you got your own channel, like you got books out. Um, how do you feel about code switching? Do you code switch?
I'm writing a book about this as we speak.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's called "I Fired My Boss: Escaping Corporate Trauma,"
Yo, that's
and
crazy.
I definitely code switched when I was working in corporate.
I did too. That's why this is a
Um,
topic.
I definitely code switched, and one of the I don't know if I have a chapter titled this or I just have a quote in the beginning of a chapter, but I say corporate America radicalizes you.
It do what?
It radicalizes you.
Radicalizes you. Okay.
So, like when I first got out of corporate, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be as black as I can be. It's blackety black, 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 right?
Right.
Wear my do rag, earring, curse, like show up however I want to show up. And now, I'm about 10 months out. So now I'm starting to establish like balance, right? Where and how do I want to show up unapologetically black, and what does that look like? Do I need to become a caricature in that expression of unapologetic blackness?
This is where I
Um,
wanted to go with
that,
it.
that says right that I'm wearing earrings and do rag all the time because now I'm putting on a costume to try to prove to everybody that after 10 years of code switching, I'm down, or do I continue to talk the way that I talk, dress the way that I dress, show up the way that I show up, and just say, look, this is my mission. Um, Being in that space is definitely oppressive to some extent in how you express yourself. But I have the ability these days to show up how I want to show up, to take the meetings that I want to take, how I want to take them. I'm not like trying to impress anybody, but I still have to be brand conscious, right? Because I've built a brand on my name. And so in being brand conscious, does that mean that I show up on IG Live like smoking a blunt? No, like that's
Because you
not
didn't
how,
smoke blunts.
right?
Ain't like you,
But
because me, I smoke blunts. I'm just keep it 100. I smoked blunts before. I'm going to smoke blunts after. But go ahead.
and I swear in my personal life, but like I don't swear on in professional avenues. So why should I start swearing, on social media now? That's not to say that I won't swear, right? That's not to say that I won't do any of the things that I'm talking about. But what it is to say is that it's not. I don't need to make those things a part of my identity.
Yeah, you got to be
I,
you.
I am who I am. Um, but yeah, the recovery from corporate trauma is definitely real. If even that looks like holding your tongue in instances where you feel very strongly about something, but you don't want to offend the higher up or lose out on an opportunity. Like those are not things that I have to worry about anymore. There is no higher up,
Right.
right? Or censoring myself on social media platforms, or lessening my accolades to not make somebody feel uncomfortable. Like those are things that are not existent anymore. That did exist when I was in corporate, because um, there was a constant need for me to explain myself, not because I felt like I needed to, but because I was asked to. Why are you doing this thing? What is your intention with the company? What is your commitment to the company? And so I didn't have the ability to like promote myself the way that I wanted to, because I was just
Hmm.
like, oh, this is gonna be a conversation. I'm gonna have a one-on-one about this thing now. Um, I couldn't talk about the things that I talk about now, right? I couldn't be provocative in the way that I'm provocative
It's
around it.
empowering.
It's very much empowering, but it's learning how to manage that power. I think that's important. And
Yeah.
saying again, don't become radicalized in that you're gonna go from over here, suit and tie, button up, to over here, just t-shirt, fitted, chain, whatever, and showing up like however you want to show up. Um, like be you. And I think the biggest thing in that is decide who you want to be, right? A lot of times you hear something as simple as be you, and most people are like, all right, well, what does that mean? Right? I spent all of my 20s in corporate, but 30-year-old me is different than 21-year-old me. 31-year-old me is different than 21-year-old me, right? So
Mm.
who do I want to be at 31, at 32? That is different from how corporate molded me. I spent all of my 20s being shaped by corporate. So learning who I am as a person at 30 would have happened anyway, right? Because 30 is just very transformative. But learning who I am outside of the influence of corporate is a whole nother layer to that. And it's been very
Ooh.
rewarding.
Wow. So it's an ever changing narrative. Um, but also you said being brand conscious, knowing who you want to be, um, outside of wherever you were being, I guess, where you had the code switch. Now you're outside of that, knowing, but that's going to take some sitting down with ourselves,
Oh yeah, 100%.
um, on a constant basis, because I mean, anybody that's watching this or going to be watching this most likely are in the process of evolving themselves. So it's not like you're going to be the same person anyway
Right.
from this year to the next. So okay, I can go
But
with
I mean,
that.
I'm just thinking too, like developmentally, right? The person that you were in your teens versus the person that you ended up being in your 20s might be similar, but would be different. When you leave your 20s and you go into your 30s, like that's different too. They say what your brain stops maturing around what 25. So you
That's what
think
they
about
say.
yeah. So you think about I spent 21 from 21 to 31 in corporate. But before I started working in banking, I was working in retail and supermarkets. So I've been working since I was 16. And the rules around how to engage and how to show up in those environments tell you pretty much the same thing all the time, right? So for half of my life, I've been programmed to think and interact with authority within those spaces in a particular way. And now I have the ability to kind of move away from that. Like that's more than just like the light switch going off and saying, "Oh, now I have freedom." That's like you're breaking a lot of programming. But another thing to also consider too is a lot of the brands that I work with, the brands that I write for, the brands that I speak for, like I could show up however I want to, but I still got to get paid, right? So I don't want to do something that's going to make them say, "Ah, man, this guy is like too radical. This guy is too,
But
whatever."
guess what? Guess what? That's right now. We have to like it. This might be a whole nother conversation, but I'm gonna tap on it anyway. We, in one instance, yes, we want to show up unapologetically and be ourselves, but then we have that one thing. You know what? I might not be able to do that because I still got to get paid. This is why one of my goals is to empower us financially so we can create our own shit. We don't have to pander and be looking for their approval for credibility because we want to get paid. No, this is why we need all of us to have bread, like collectively, like the Jews, right? Like they don't got to ask nobody for shit. They show up with that bag to the politicians. Listen, we want X, Y, and Z done. No? All right, we're going to go to the other politician and he might be able to do something for us. Because they showing up with the bag. If you ain't got no money or you want someone else's money, you got to show up the way they want you to show up. And that's cool because once we get the credibility, now we can do it. We can leverage that credibility to our benefit. So yes, we might have to go through these loopholes and dance a little bit over here, but we should be, our goal is to not to look towards that. Yes, we got the credibility now. We got the, on that platform. And now we need to leverage it and expand upon our own stuff. You understand what I'm saying?
100%.
Because that's one of the things that keep us not saying the stuff that we want to say because we're on someone else's platform. See, now we have our own channels where we can say what we want to say to a degree on Instagram. We can say what we want to say to a degree on YouTube. But I don't know if you noticed that some people are starting to create their own ecosystem, whereas though now that degree of, oh, they might shut my page down, they're taking that variable out because they're creating their own, like Boyce Watkins, I think he got a TV, social media platform called Black Enough, right? I was talking to the football player, William Sweet, and he was telling me about how if they don't want you on the team for whatever reason, you can be dope, but if they don't like you, it's their team, they can get rid of you. So I'm like, yo, why don't y'all got all the money, why don't y'all go create your own league? He's like, oh nah, man, you know how much stuff you got to do to, no slight against the bro William Sweet, but what I'm trying to encourage us to do is to get in the mindset of we need to create our own shit. It might not have to be here in the United States. We might have to go somewhere else. I don't know. But we shouldn't shun the idea of creating our own platforms that has built-in credibility already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's I'm off my soapbox.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. I think.
But you got to do what you got to do to get where you're going. But at the same time, we can't take that idea and throw it to the side. We have to keep trying to figuring out ways to collectively take our power back.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So that code, we did the code switching. I think I got one more thing before I let you go be great for the rest of the day. Let me see. I think I had another dope question from so wait a minute. When you grew up in New York, you said Mount Vernon?
Yep.
That's the hood, ain't it?
It is.
So how was it with you and your friends that you grew up with? Because you talk about empowerment, you seem to be along the same lines as me, wanting to put people in position, give them information. Did any of your day ones come along on the journey, or was that like a challenge? What did that look
Um,
like?
like, am I still in contact with a lot of my friends
Yeah,
from?
or they on the same type of time, or they was like, I ain't with that shit, and just went a different way.
Um, I think it's a combination of both. So, leaving New York had its own set of growing pains that come with getting out of your hometown, right? I think everybody should travel, and I
Mm,
think I should maybe spend some time away from their hometown. But I think a lot of those relationships just kind of some of the people in Mount Vernon that still are in Mount Vernon, uh, their mindset was just limited by the space that they were in.
mm,
But there are people that still live there, or people that grew up there, went to school, and went back, who are doing great things, and who are embracing these ideas and these attitudes around wealth building and then expanding in other ways. Um, some of my friends today are people that I wasn't friends with when I was growing up down there. But we had the commonality of being in the same environment, coming from the same background. And I'm lucky to have friends that I grew up with that were really good friends back then and are still really good friends now. But it was multicultural experience as well. So this particular set of friends that I'm making reference to, their background is Brazilian. Um, and so the experience growing up was similar, but it wasn't exactly the same.
right.
Um, they actually provided me with some cultural dimensions to understand or consider as I navigated um, really poverty, right? And um, they encouraged me to get a driver's license even though I didn't have a car. They encouraged me to get a passport even though I had no intentions on traveling. There was a lot that went into maximizing my status as an American because they were undocumented. So a lot of
Mm,
conversation around like you have the ability to do this thing, why are you not doing it? That started very young. That then afforded me opportunity later on in life, um, like travel internationally. I've been to I think 6 or 7 different countries, and those experiences have really shaped my worldview as well, right? And even if all of the experiences weren't great, right? I
right.
had a Morocco, and I didn't have the best experience in Morocco, but I get to say, yeah, I went to Morocco. I was on the
Right.
African continent. I went to Iceland, and the food was terrible, but I get to say, yeah, I went to Iceland. It was cold, and the food was shitty, but I
Man,
did it.
man.
Um, so like those experiences help kind of add color to the American experience, if you will, because there's so many people in this country that will never leave this country, that have never left this country. And so the worldview as an American is that America is it. Really, the United States is it. And as we look at like current events, we look at how current events are impacting money today, right? Gas, food, inflation, the stock market, all those things. When you have a multicultural worldview, your perspectives on those things are a little bit more informed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very grateful for that relationship and for being able to maintain that relationship. I think that's my longest like friendship. I think 21, 22 years.
Hmm.
Uh,
So that was the demographic of your neighborhood, Brazilian and black.
multicultural, Brazilian, Black, Jamaican,
New York be
Dominican,
like that.
Mexican. Yeah, yeah.
Love New York. So what you got coming down the pike, man? What you said you got working? What you got cooking with the
I'm
people for them to
working on
look
working
out
on the
for?
book. Yeah, working on the book. Uh, Daniel, who was in here earlier from Hive Mind, I
Oh,
was on
that's
a
my
podcast.
boy.
with him.
Shout out to Hive Mind.
He uh he got me to pull a trigger on doing the podcast. I have been thinking about it. I've been mulling it over, but he gave me some information yesterday that was just like, "Yo, podcasting is it right
I
now."
want
So
in. Hey man, tap me in. I want to
yeah,
be
for
I want to
sure.
be a
For
guest.
So gonna start doing that. Still working on speaking, still working on writing, and that's gonna be a never-ending thing. And just creating more products for the people.
That's what it's about, man. Digital products is the wave. Allows you to be location independent, man, and serve more people. So whoever's watching this, take that in consideration. Um, where could people tap in with you? You have a website, what social handles? Drop it on the people.
Yeah, everything is at my name. So Rahkim Sabree. Website is rahkimsabree.com. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. Rahkim Sabree. Um, yeah, Google Rahkim Sabree. See my
Word.
article. Click the link in my bio.
Click the
Um,
link in the bio.
yeah, there's a bunch of stuff up there.
That's a fact, man. This was dope, man. And this is to be continued. This is part one of many, I'm sure. I definitely appreciate you sharing your wisdom with the people, man. For anybody that's going to be watching this later, make sure y'all, if y'all haven't seen him before, make sure y'all give him a follow on all those social platforms. But like I said, this is to be continued, man. I appreciate you for gracing the Rap and Dope stage. Um, and I'll be seeing you and talking to you soon, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.